Okay, boys and girls, welcome back for part 3. Hopefully this will be the final part, and I know up until now we have covered quite a bit of sort of deep information here in Photoshop, especially for anybody who's a first time user on Photoshop. But if you want to be really good at Photoshop, this is how you got to do it. Well, let's just get stuck into it. And before we move any further, I haven't done any more work off camera. This is exactly where we left off. And as you can remember from part 2, we had made like a copy of the body and flipped it over so that both sides would be like a mirror image of each other. What we want to do now is we want to join them two together to make it one layer. In Photoshop, this is called a merge. So you're going to merge the two layers together. So you can see that I've got the body layer here, and then above that I've got the copy of the body layer, and the copy is the one that I flipped. So I'm going to go to this copy. What you want to do is whatever layer is on the top, whenever you merge, you always merge from the top layer into the bottom layer. So I'm going to just right click, and you can see merge down. This is what we're going to do. We're going to press this one, merge down, and I'm just going to go to apply, and now both them layers have been combined together onto one layer. So now that I have this on one layer, is I could turn on this background layer. So this is the original photograph that we started with. I can turn this one on, and then I can come back up to our new shaped body, this one here. And if I just come up to here, you can see this opacity. So if I just come right over the word opacity and left click and start to drop the opacity, we can make that image slightly see-through. So take it down to around 60%, and we'll just zoom in and we'll see what we have done here. So you can see right here, you can actually see this is the original guitar body, and this is the end of the original shape, and we have warped it and changed it and made it a wee bit wider in this area. So if you have a guitar case that's very tight fit and very snug fit, this might be a bit of a problem, but most guitar cases have like a polystyrene inside, and if you've made it just a little bit bigger, you should still be okay. You should still be able to fit it in. But if you are worried about this, you could come up to this area here. So this is the dropper tool, okay? But if you hold this, it opens up secondary tools that are hidden in this wee space here. So right here, we've got a ruler, and we can... Okay, so usually in Photoshop, we would have a scale along here, and we would have a scale down here. It's basically a ruler, and from that scale, we can drag out guidelines. So let's go to View and Rules. Okay, and we're just going to come up here. And what we're going to do is we are going to drag down one of these to about the widest point. Alright. I'm going to move down just a little bit. We're going to move down just a little bit so that we can see the bottom of the guitar. So I can also see that I have warped the bottom of this guitar down a wee bit as well, because I can see this line here is the original bottom of the guitar, and I have added a little bit on the bottom as well. So what I'm going to do from here, I am going to drag another rule down, another guideline down, sorry, and I am going to measure the distance here. So here with my ruler, I'm just going to drag down. I'm going to hold the shift key. The shift key just locks it in a straight line, so I'm getting a more accurate measurement that way. We're at 128 mil. If I was going to translate these measurements across to the guitar case, I would measure from the bottom, where this part here would go into the guitar case. I'd measure from the bottom up 128, and then once I knew where that line was, I would then measure across that distance at that height. So my next measurement would be from here to about here. I come up here and check my width, 239 at the width, and I would just make sure that it fits. If it doesn't fit, you can always go back in and just warp it down a little bit in the liquify tool. If you know about Photoshop, and you might be tempted to use the free transform, but if you use the free transform, you are going to shrink everything slightly, including this area here where the neck pocket is, and you may end up, yeah, in fact you will end up with an issue there. So for me, I feel comfortable enough that I can make this fit into the case that I have here. So I'll hold on to this file anyway, and if somebody decides in the future that this is the guitar they want built, then perfect, I'll build it. So I'm going to come back up here to this move tool, and with the move tool I'm just going to come down here. I'm going to grab these little guidelines, and just by pulling them back up into these little rulers up in the margins here, I am going to be able to get rid of them. Just so you know, we can also drag out from the side here like this. So we could have dragged out this way and did our measurements that way as well. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch off this background layer, and you can see that the guitar is kind of see-through at the minute. So let's come back up, select the body, and you'll see here the opacity is still at 62, so I'm just going to bump it up to 100. And now it's time to turn this into a set of lines. Okay, so at this point you really need to figure out how detailed you want these plans. Do you want every single little detail in here? If so, you can use the techniques that we're going to be looking at here, and you can make that happen. But for me, the video would just be too long, and I just don't want to do it. This guitar may never come to see the light of day, so it's not really worth it for me. So what we're going to do now, you remember we've got the body layer, we've got the fingerboard layer, and we've got the head layer. So what I'm going to do is I am going to come here to the body layer. I'm going to come over here to the little eye, and I'm going to hold Alt, Control and Shift, and then press the I, and that turns all of the other layers off except for the one that we're on. I'm going to take you in very close here and let you have a look at one little area of this guitar right here. So I just didn't spend enough time making this perfectly tidy. So my idea was that I would just come through with the pen tool, and the pen tool would eradicate this little step, this little bump we have here. So if you know that you've got a perfectly smooth outline and you're really happy with that outline to be your actual plan, you can sort of skip the next step. You can just come here to the body layer, and then you can right click. Don't right click in this area, don't right click on the name, right click here on this square and come up here to select pixels. Now you got to understand that this in Photoshop, this is no information. Whenever you see this checker backboard, there's nothing on it. That's what that's telling you. It's completely blank, and the only thing that's on this little backboard is the actual image. We have cut it out with the pen tool in the beginning, and then we made that selection and we put that selection onto its own layer, and the only thing that was on that layer was the guitar body. So because we did that step, we can come here and we can make our selection this way, and it saves a lot of work. But for me, I'm going to have to go through this with the pen tool, and you know, even if I was like 90% sure that I had the right shape, I would still come through with the pen tool, because the pen tool basically makes the smoothest edge. So what I'm going to do is just go Control D, and then that just deselects the body. So we've just reversed that process that we did. Okay, so for me, I'm going to start right up here, and once again I'm going to get in really nice and close. So this time I'm not going to be so concerned about perfectly following the line and cutting out the exact shape of the body. My goal this time around is to make sure that the curves and sweeps that I'm going to create are really, really pleasing to the eye. So usually if you've got an area like this where you've made a really big change, best to skip past it and make it as big and smooth a sort of sweep as you can make it. So I would say kind of like that. And you can see that this is not following the line perfectly, but this is okay. I'm actually going to come back even further, and I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to hold Control. Sorry, I'm going to hold Alt while selecting this one. I'm going to go with, yeah, I'm going to go with that. I'm going to come in here and have a close look and make sure that I haven't got any kind of a little angle. I think I do have a tiny bit of an angle, so I'm going to adjust this slightly more. Like this. And you can see that I am using our new body shape as a rough guide. I'm trying to stay fairly true to the new body shape, but I'm not going to follow it religiously. I'm going to allow the pen tool to do what it does best, and it is going to make the most pleasing shape possible. I believe the way this tool is designed to work, I believe it works along with the Fibonacci numbers. I think, like the golden ratio, I think this tool naturally works to those numbers. I have a feeling that that's what it does, because whenever I design a guitar body like this, if I allow the tool to do the work, if I allow the pen tool to do the work, it really, really comes out nice. But if I do all the shaping myself and then I make the pen tool follow all that shape that I made, it doesn't really come out as nice. Okay, so if you remember back in the previous part, we made the duplicate, we flipped it over so that we would have like a mirror image from one side to the other here. And that's going to come back into play now. So when you look at this guitar as a whole, you can see that the top of the body is kind of like a regular. This has its own shape on this side, and then we've got the horn shape on this side. So we can be a little bit more artistic up here, but because I did take the time to make these two sides exactly the same, I'm continue to take a little bit of extra care and make sure that I reserve those decisions we made previously. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time getting this line to follow the body just right. So I'm going to come in a little bit closer, and that will really just help me get a good line here. So once again, when I pull out the arm, I want the arm to lie on the line of the body. That will really help. So I'm going to move up a little bit. I'm just a bit too far along for this. And then I'm going to hold Alt, and I'm just going to elongate this arm slightly, and that will help. There we go. Okay, so I'll just continue to work the rest of the way around. You know what I'm aiming for now. There is one more thing that I will say, and it is important that you take this into consideration. So whenever I get round to this point here, this is the middle. This is where, if you were going to stand this up against the wall or something, this is where the bottom is. It's important that whenever we get here that we put a dot right here in the middle, and when we pull the arms out, we don't pull them at an angle, we pull them flat. That is important. And then if you look, this is our previous, right here, this is our previous dot, so the line runs from here the whole way to here. I'm going to try and sort of mirror that distance again, so that the bottom of this guitar is nice and uniformed, and if we lean it up against a wall, there's no chance that it's going to want to roll one way or another. So I'm going to come to about here, I would say. I'm going to do my best to follow the line. There we go. Okay, so now that we've come back to the start and we have closed our path, that's what this is called. Whenever you get back to the start, you close the path. The next thing we want to do is we want to put this line on its own layer. So let's go down here and get another layer, and we've just created a new layer up here. There's nothing on this layer now. And from here, what we can do is we can make a selection. So right click here on the image and make selection. Okay, so one of the very first things we need to do at this point is make sure that the guitar is actually the right size. So when we take it to the print shop, they will print it and it will be the right size on the piece of paper. We really want to have the guitar that is being printed onto the piece of paper. We want that printout to be the exact size of the instrument we are going to build, so that we can take our measurements directly. So let's take a look at how we do that. It really isn't that hard. It's a bit fiddly, but it's doable. First thing we want to do is we want to drag down, and the first thing that we need to do is we need to switch the orientation. As you can see, this canvas that I'm working on is in landscape view. It's it's longer than it's tall, and what we want to do is we want to have the guitar horizontal rather than vertical. So what we are going to do is we're going to make sure that we've got everything selected. I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Okay, so right now we only have one layer selected, but we need to select all of the important stuff. So you should go through. The thing that we need to do is we need to switch the orientation of this. As you can see, this canvas that I'm working on is in landscape view. It's it's longer than it's tall. And what we want to do is we want to have the guitar horizontal rather than vertical. So what we are going to do is we're going to make sure that we've got everything selected. I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Okay, so right now we only have one layer selected, and it's this body lines layer, but we need to select all of the important stuff. So you should go through all your layers and switch pretty much everything on. Okay, the only thing that I'm leaving switched off is this one here. This is like a white background. I'm going to leave that one switched off. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to make sure we've got everything selected. So we're going to go up here to the move tool. This is the quickest way to do it. And I'm just going to go slightly off the canvas. I'm going to hold down the left clicker and I'm going to come across till I get everything. So I've got the guitar, I've got the background, I've got everything. And if we go back and just check that we've really got everything, you can see that everything is lit up. From here, while everything is selected, we're going to hold Control T for free transform, and we are going to rotate this thing round. Let's rotate it 90 degrees. Alright, okay, so we've got the guitar sideways, but we want to just double check that we really have it perfectly straight across. So if we come up here to these little margins, we can drag down these guidelines, and these guidelines are perfectly horizontal or perfectly vertical depending on where you pull it out from. So I'm going to pull it out, I'm going to pull it down close to I'm just going to pull it down to here. Now I'm going to zoom in on the neck, nice and close. And I'm going to get that line to run right through the middle of one of these fret markers. So I'm going to go and grab that line. Okay, as I'm moving this line down, I'm going to hold the control button. What happens with this, sometimes it'll want to spring on to the side of things. Like it'll want to sort of lock on to certain areas. By holding the control button, that stops that from happening. So we can fine tune exactly where we want this to be. I'm going to put it right there. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And it seems like that's running fairly central down the neck. I'm fairly happy with that. Doesn't look like we are too far out of alignment. Next thing we want to do is we want to start worrying about the size of this guitar. We really do want this to be the actual size. So we are still in free transform mode. You can tell because the blue box is around the guitar. And whenever we're in free transform, we can actually make the guitar bigger or smaller. So let's lay out our guidelines so that we can get the scale length that we want. Alright, so from the side margin here, I'm going to grab one of these bars. I'm going to pull it out to where the nut is. And drop it there. Now I'm going to get a ruler. Okay, so when I selected the ruler, it has deselected the free transform, so we mustn't be able to use the ruler and the free transform at the same time. Okay, to make life easier, I suggest we should zoom in about this far. Come to the line, hold your button, hold the left trigger, and start bringing it. Now what I'm doing, I am looking up here. I am looking up along the top here at these measurements, and you can see the one W 20.779. It needs to be 25.500. So we're at 30 something now. Okay, like 25, 27. Okay, 25.503. It's not perfect. If you want to get it perfect, zoom in closer and do this. You will get it much easier. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to drag out another one of these guides here. And it just springs to it. So, what we need to do now is we need to make this the saddles where the string touch and the nut. We want the nut to land on this bar, and we want the saddle to land on that bar. So we're going to go back to free transform. Let's do that. Control T. Alright. So from here, let me double check that we are, yeah. So I'm just checking to make sure that this guitar is getting bigger in all dimensions. So I'm going to just get here, and I am going to make this guitar, I'm going to drag it back until it's about there. This is how I do this. This is how I scale the guitar in Photoshop. And it takes a wee bit of back and forward. You try and get everything lined up right. There may be an easier way to do it. I just don't know how. So this is the way I do it. So the trick that I have found, you'll notice as I drag this in, you notice as I drag this in, the bridge is getting closer to this line twice as fast almost as the nut is getting closer to this line. So what I do, I actually so I put the bridge, oh, what have I done? Okay, so I put the bridge twice as far from the line as the nut, basically, and that gets me closer. I don't know if that is making a whole lot of sense, but it's kind of how I do it. We are closer. Let's move it this way slightly. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I can get rid of these guides now. So to get rid of the guides, just drag them back into the margins. And we can start turning off the layers that we don't really need now, but it's good that we have sized everything appropriately just in case we ever need to go back and get something. At least everything is the same size. So just save out of that, just hit the enter button, and that will take you out of free transform. So now that we've got the guitar the right size on the canvas, what we want to do is we want to move it to the right location. So while everything is selected, make sure you've got the move tool selected, and we are going to move everything, and we'll move it up towards the edge. Now don't put it this close to the edge, even though the plans can become a little bit cramped. We need to leave ourselves a little bit of space. The printers don't print very well to the very edge of the page. Just for our safety, give ourselves a little bit of space around the edge. I'm gonna go with that. Okay, so we have just moved everything, all of the layers, and what we're going to start doing now is turn off the layers that we don't really want to be looking at anymore. So I'm turning off the both background layers, and now you can see that we're here with the new guitar shape. So now that we've got this guitar in its new position, there's a few things we should do that are important. We really want to mark in the holes that the tuners will go into. We also want to mark the position of the saddles here. Okay, let's mark out the positions of these posts. First thing we want to do is we want to pull out a circle. We also want to make sure that this circle stays a circle. So hold the shift key. That will keep it a perfect circle. So at the minute we are measuring in inches. So we don't want to be measuring in inches. So let's make a change to that. Let's jump into preferences and go to here. Switch to millimeters. Okay, hold shift while we're making this circle, and we want to get about 9.7, 9.8 mil. There, 9.7. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we are here on this layer. This is actually a background layer that I made. It's just a white background. I'm going to come down to here and make a new layer. And then I am going to come back up. I am going to stroke. That's all okay. I'm going to deselect with Control D. Now we have one circle that is the perfect size. We're going to name this layer. We'll call it post hole. So that's post hole 1. We want to get 6 post holes. So we're going to go Control J. So that's post hole 1 copy. Copy 2, that is actually number 3. So we're going to have to go to copy 5. So we're just going to keep pressing Control J until we get to 5. Now we're on copy 5 at the minute. You can see that copy 5 is the one that is highlighted. We're going to go Control T, and we're going to just drag it down into position. We're going to do our best to get this looking about right. So I am really not going by the post that's sticking up out of the hole. I am kind of going by the kind of washer that's down against the wood. That's what I'm looking at there. I'm trying to judge it off it. Okay, press the enter button. Okay, we're down deep in the layers, and that's why we can't see it. What's actually happening here is these layers, this head layer is above the layers that we are working on, but this white background is really down at the bottom, and then this circle is just on the layer above this background, so we can see it. But as soon as we pass this circle into this area, the circle is underneath. So what we are going to do, so we've got, while we've got this post hole number 5, we're going to go Control Alt Shift. we're just going to come over here and we're going to just roll down here until we get to the first post hole, and we're going to press there, and that's going to select that group. Okay, then we are going to move the whole lot up. Let's put it here near the very top, and now I don't know if you could see that, but I can see a little circle right there. Okay, just click. Okay, click on number 4. So this one here is number 5. We're going to go Control T. I'm going to grab in the middle and we're just going to slide it down into position. And we're just going to repeat this for each one of these holes, and we're going to do our best to get them lined up. And for me, I like to use the washer in at the back here to line it up. Press enter to finish. So what we want to do now, we want to merge the post holes that we just dropped into position with the line drawn for the head. So let's go ahead and do that. Remember, when we merge downwards. So head lined. I'm going to grab this layer, I'm going to pull it up so that there's the post holes. Post hole 1. So I want it right below post hole 1. And we are just going to right click on post hole 1, and we are going to, okay, so for quickness what we are going to do is we are going to turn off all layers except for the head lined. So we're going to do Alt Control Shift, and we are going to press the eyeball. Now we're going to, we're just going to turn on the post holes. 1, 1 more. Okay, what we can do now that we've turned these on, everything else is switched off. We're going to merge visible. Okay, what I would suggest that you do is that you just check and make sure there's nothing else turned on. Okay, nothing else is turned on. Okay, merge visible. So we've taken all of those layers and put them onto one layer now. So that's the head layer basically done. That's the lined part of the head done. So just to make it a little bit easier to see what I'm doing, I am going to come down here and I am going to turn on this background. So we don't have the location for the saddle, and we need to do that next. So I'm going to switch the body layer back on. I'm going to just zoom in here. And I'm going to come up to this ellipse tool, and I'm going to do this one here. So with the body line layer selected, I am going to make another selection above that, and this time I'm going to come down here to this square. I'm going to go here to the line tool. So it seems like the location of the line tool is different for me tonight. For some reason it's not in the normal place. Usually I come down to these 3 lines and this opens a separate menu here, and that's where I get my line tool. I'm going to zoom in as best I can. You can see that we've got a bit of mirror imaging going on just here. I'm going to start from the low E string, and I'm going to do my line the whole way across to the high E string. So if you're having problems with this, you may have to come over here. You see this little square here? This is like a smart layer. Come up here to rasterize layer. Sometimes if you're having problems getting things that normally work to work, it might be that. Alright, so whenever we're using this line tool, sometimes this line tool can be fiddly to make it work right. If that doesn't fix your problem, you need to look up in here. Sometimes this can be a shape or a path. We really need it to be a pixel, okay? So make sure it's on a pixel, and then we're going to make our selection from the low E to the high E, and we're just trying to get close enough. So we can hardly even see that there's a line there, but if I turn all the other layers off, we can clearly see that there is a line there. Okay, so next thing we want to do is we want to join this line for the bridge and the body line drawn. Okay, so this line 6 is the line for the saddles. I'm going to merge it down to the body line, so make sure that your line 6 is right above the body line. Right click and merge down. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make a duplicate of the body layer. So we're going to do Control J. We're going to do free transform with Control T, and we are going to move this onto its own space. You'll see these pink lines appear, letting you know when things are lined up in Photoshop. I'm going to press the enter button. So now we've got a copy of the body and it's in its own location. I'm going to just come down here to the background image, and I am going to turn on the background just to make things a little easier to see. I'm going to do the same with the head, and I'm going to do the same with the neck. So the head, I'm going to make a duplicate. Fingerboard line, that as well. I'm going to grab it, put it on its own space. And then the head copy, I want to do the same thing again. Let's go and get it and put it on its own space. Press enter. Okay. So the next thing we want to do, I'm going to grab the move tool, and I am going to make a selection of these line layers. I'm going to duplicate them 2 more times, and that just makes them much easier to see. Now I'm going to make one more selection. This time I'm going to select just this. I'm selecting the guitar body, and I'm also selecting the neck. And I am going to make one copy of that. Body line copy. Okay, so what I've done there, okay, let's explain what I just did there. So right here in this area, I've got multiple layers of the body and the guitar. You can see it here. 8 layers of the body, 8 layers of the fingerboard. Now I've just selected 2. I've just selected one of each, and I am going to drag those 2 down onto their own space like this. I'm going to do free transform, so Control T for that. I'm going to grab both these 2, and I'm just going to pull them down to their own space, and I'm going to put it over this way, even though it's going off the page. So the next going off the page. Okay, very good. I'm going to hit the enter button, and that's going to lock in what we just did there. I'm going to scroll down here till I get that background on. now. Now, on this set of drawings, I'm going to make a bit of a change here. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab the pen tool. I'm going to zoom in. I'll zoom into about here. I'm going to get in even closer. I'm going to drop one of those little blue lines. And then I'm going to come out to about here. And I'm going to make a shape kind of like this. Then I'm going to come over to here, say about here. I'll come out and have a look at that. I'm just going to close the path like this, okay? Going to make a selection. 1 pixel is enough. I am going to make a new layer. I'm on the new layer, and I'm going to make a stroke here. So I am. So let me come up here, grab this one, and stroke. Okay, we're going to deselect, Control D. Now on this one here, we are going to add this vector mask. Okay, we're going to press B for brush. We're going to make sure that it's this brush. If it's the brush with the wee water drop on it, this one down here, or none of these other tools, we need this one on the top. We are going to press, we're going to get our black. Okay, so let's get the black and just bring our flow up and our opacity up. So I'm just getting rid of this inside line. We don't need this inside line. So this is a soft brush. I need to go for a hard brush. So the thing about a hard brush, once we come up to these lines, once I come up to this line here with the hard brush will finish right at the edge of the circle. I will also make the circle a little bit smaller. Okay, we are going to do the exact same thing again. We're going to grab our pen tool. We're going to come right here. We're going to zoom in really close. This is important that we get this. Let's come out a little bit. Let's come out to about here. I'll pull up a little bit. I am going to come to about here. Let's get in and get on this line properly. So for anybody who's wondering what we just did there, if they're not sure of, so if anybody's not sure what we have just done by adding these extra lines and things, we have made this specially for routing out the neck pocket, this part here. Whenever you come to route the neck, your router base plate will actually, it'll span this gap. But if you don't have all this extra wood here, you don't have enough, especially if you're in this area here. If you're trying to route this area here and you can only balance on this wee point, it's very, very difficult. So this type of template really, really helps. So that's what that is for. So I don't like to pick up routing holes onto templates I prefer to use separate templates just for the pickups. So at this point we should definitely save. So the process of doing the line drawings makes lots and lots of layers. So the best thing to do to keep things tidy is to go through that and merge a lot of those layers together if you can. Okay, as you can see, I've added a side profile. This is the side profile here, and I've also broken down the side profile into the body and the neck. So I'm not going to take this set of plans very much further. Even if I was going to build this guitar, this would be enough information for me to build the guitar. So it's up to you whether you want to put in the pickup cavities and things like that. So let me just explain very basically what we've got. So obviously we've got the front part of the body, we've got the side view of the body, we have the neck template. So you can use this one to make the overall shape of the neck, and if you want to add a fingerboard to the top of it, you would use this one to get the size of your fingerboard and to make the template for the fingerboard. You can use this is handy to have for whenever you're drilling the holes for the machine heads and things like that. This is the side profile of the body by itself, and this is the side profile of the neck. This side profile has the fingerboard with included into it, so there's no side profile for just the fingerboard by itself. And if you look closely down here, you will see that I have left a little overhang. So let's have a look at that. So you can see that the neck comes up out of the neck pocket and it curves round a little bit like this. So it's got like a little tongue on it, like a little neck extension. And I'm sure most of you know what that's for, but it's just makes it easier to hide the joint down in here. Makes the guitar look a little bit cleaner. If you want to mark in the location of where your bridge is going to go, that's quite easy to do. You can just, the way I've done this, if I drag my margin out from the side, you'll see that the neck, you'll see that the body is lined up with the actual body up here. So it's also the whole, this guitar, this side profile guitar is lined up perfectly with this profile here. So just by dragging the guideline to this area here, this will give us the location of where we want to put the saddle. So at this stage we're almost completely finished, but there's one thing that we have to do that's very, very important still. We need to put some center lines in. So to put the center lines on, the best and easiest way to do it is I turn on the body and I'm going to turn off the background layer so we can see the body. I'm going to grab one of these margins. I'm going to grab one of these, sorry. It's going to come in close. Okay, yeah, I'm happy with that. Seems to be running, yeah, right through the center the whole way. And from here, we're just going to grab the line tool right here. So now that we're happy with this center line, let's turn off the background layer and let's come over here and grab our line tool and let's draw a line. Start from about here. And we'll do the same thing, we'll just come off the other side here. And before I let go, I'm going to press the shift key and that's going to just make sure the line is straight. So what we're going to do next, we're going to get the move tool and we are going to slide in zoom in very, very close. So this is the line that we're looking for. I'm going to zoom in even closer and I'm going to grab that line. Okay, we got the line. I'm just going to drag this up there. The line will actually jump to that guideline that we just laid down there a minute ago. So I'm just going to move these guidelines off the page. So I've just switched on the fingerboard here. I'm going to drag the fingerboard to here. Photoshop does a really good job of just locking it on. So we're just going to repeat the same thing again. Okay, well that's me at the end. Alright, so I have went ahead and put in all of the center lines. So you can see that I just followed the same steps. Okay, so all that is left to do now is flatten down the image so that everything is on one layer. But what I like to do for this part is I like to turn off the background image. And there's my background. We'll switch it off. We're just going to go here, flatten image. Press OK. That puts everything on the one layer. We're going to do one final save, but this time we're going to go up and we're going to go save as. We're going to come down, yeah, save as. And we're going to change to a file type that the printer shops like to see. Some printing places don't use these Photoshop files, so just go with something very standard like a JPEG. So just for me to name it and it stops any confusion, I'm gonna write here that it's to be, I'm gonna do capitals S0 at 100%. I'm gonna save it just like that. This wee box here will come up. Okay, I just hit the OK button. That's fine just as it is. So you just transfer that onto a USB card and take that to the print shop and ask them to print it at 100%. It's a good idea to bring some sort of a measuring tape with you and just to measure. You want to measure from here, from the nut to the saddle, and make sure it's 25.5 inches if that's the scale you're using. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that, and I really do hope that you get some use out of what we did here today. Please hit the subscribe button and give me a thumbs up. It'd be really great to help me get this channel off the ground. Yeah, and please stay tuned because I have some interesting videos in the pipeline at the minute. Okay, thanks for watching.